In recent days, the world was shaken by news that rocked global geopolitics and energy markets. The United States, led by President Donald Trump, launched a major military operation in Venezuela, striking Caracas, capturing President Nicolas Maduro and transporting him to the U.S. under narco-terrorism charges. What began as an alleged counter-narcotics move swiftly escalated into a global crisis, shaping crude oil supply, sanctions, naval blockades, and international law debates. Welcome to How It's Made Daily channel. Here we reveal how everyday things we use are made and uncover the hidden processes of industries. Stay with me until the end, and let's find out what's behind this latest U.S.-Venezuela oil conflict. The Trump-Venezuela oil deal, the capture of Maduro, oil tanker seizures, and the strategic chase for Venezuelan crude. Why did this military action trigger international shockwaves and dominate discussions in capitals worldwide? The answer centers on a resource that has shaped wars, economics, and power alliances for over a century: Venezuela's oil. With some of the largest proven crude oil reserves on Earth, heavy crude that suits Gulf Coast refineries, Venezuelan petroleum is central to the global energy landscape and oil geopolitics. In response to the crisis, Trump claimed the operation would secure Venezuela's trapped oil assets, lower fuel prices, and enhance U.S. energy security. The administration says Venezuela will export tens of millions of barrels of crude to the United States, redirecting oil originally bound for China and placing it under U.S. control, with proceeds to help both Americans and Venezuelans. The Trump strategy includes seizing oil tankers linked to Venezuelan exports, easing sanctions selectively, negotiating crude oil deals, and preparing U.S. refiners and oil majors like Chevron, Exxon, and ConocoPhillips to return and invest in rebuilding Venezuela's dilapidated oil infrastructure. This potential oil export surge, if realized, would influence global crude supply, fuel prices, and the balance of oil power in the Western Hemisphere. But these developments raise fundamental questions about the future of global energy and geopolitics. Why hasn't Venezuela's oil wealth translated into sustainable prosperity for its people? And what are the true motives behind U.S. interest in Venezuelan oil reserves? Is this about energy security, geopolitical influence, control of export flows, or dominance in the international oil market? In this documentary, we explore the strategic importance of Venezuelan oil, its geographic and economic value, how sanctions and oil blockades have shaped its production, and the broader implications for the global energy system, crude markets, and international power dynamics. Venezuela is a hidden giant in the global energy map. With an estimated 303 billion barrels of proven oil reserves, it holds the largest oil reserves in the world, surpassing Saudi Arabia and Iran. This massive volume represents nearly 17% of all known global crude oil reserves, placing Venezuela at the center of discussions about oil geopolitics, global energy security, and long-term crude supply. These reserves are not spread evenly across the country. Most of Venezuela's oil is concentrated in the Orinoco Oil Belt, a vast petroleum-rich region in eastern Venezuela that spans the states of Guárico, Anzoátegui, Monagas, and Delta Amacuro. This area contains one of the largest accumulations of extra-heavy crude oil ever discovered, making it a strategic hotspot in the global oil market. What makes Venezuelan oil unique is also what makes it challenging. Unlike light, easy-to-refine crude, much of Venezuela's petroleum is heavy and extra-heavy crude oil, thick and viscous, requiring advanced technology, diluents, and complex refining processes. This means that enormous geological wealth does not automatically translate into fast or cheap oil production. From a global economic perspective, these reserves are far more than impressive numbers. They represent potential influence over oil prices, Brent crude benchmarks, diesel supply, fuel markets, and long-term energy stability. Access to Venezuelan crude could reshape trade flows, refinery strategies, and energy planning across the Americas and beyond, even if current production remains limited. Here lies one of the biggest paradoxes in modern energy history. Despite possessing the world's largest oil reserves, Venezuela today produces less than 1% of global oil supply. Decades of underinvestment, deteriorating infrastructure, operational collapse, and international sanctions sharply reduced output, even though the country once ranked among the world's top oil producers. This contradiction raises a powerful question. How can a nation sitting on one of the planet's greatest oil treasures struggle to turn that resource into sustained economic strength? And why do these reserves continue to attract global attention, strategic interest, and political pressure in moments of international tension? When discussing U.S. interest in Venezuelan oil, it's important to stay grounded in facts. For decades, Venezuela was a key oil supplier to the United States, especially before sanctions. Its heavy crude is particularly compatible with U.S. Gulf Coast refineries, many of which were specifically designed to process this type of oil efficiently. From an energy perspective, Venezuelan oil represents supply proximity and refinery compatibility. Compared to Middle Eastern crude, Venezuelan oil travels shorter distances to U.S. ports, reducing transportation time and shipping costs. This logistical advantage has long made Venezuela a strategic, though complex player in the Western Hemisphere energy system. Another non-controversial factor is energy security. Like many large economies, the United States seeks diversified oil supply sources to reduce exposure to geopolitical shocks. Access to stable crude flows from nearby regions is commonly viewed as a way to balance global oil markets and limit dependence on distant or volatile suppliers. Sanctions also play a central role in this relationship. Over recent years, U.S. sanctions significantly restricted Venezuela's ability to export oil, reshaping global crude flows. Any change in Venezuela's political or regulatory environment directly affects oil exports, tanker routes, refinery feedstock, and global supply balances, which is why developments there draw close attention in Washington. It's also worth noting that U.S. oil companies have historical and contractual ties to Venezuelan oil projects. These relationships were established long before current tensions and are rooted in joint ventures, infrastructure investments, and technical cooperation rather than sudden geopolitical shifts. Taken together, the U.S. interest in Venezuelan oil can be understood through logistics, refinery needs, energy security, and market stability. These are standard considerations in global energy planning and help explain why Venezuelan crude remains relevant in policy discussions, even amid political uncertainty. And this brings us naturally to the next question. If political conditions change, what happens next to Venezuela's oil resources, exports, and production capacity? That's the next chapter of this story. In early January 2026, after the military operation and the capture of Nicolás Maduro, new developments emerged about Venezuela's oil future. The U.S. government has seized sanctioned oil tankers in the Atlantic and Caribbean, reinforcing control over Venezuelan crude exports and shaping how this heavy oil might enter global markets. Official announcements from Washington indicate plans for the United States to control Venezuelan oil sales indefinitely, meaning future exports of crude oil could flow under U.S. oversight to American refineries and global buyers. This shift reflects strategic planning around oil export routes, tankers, and international petroleum trade. Some reports say that Venezuela could export up to 50 million barrels of oil to the United States in an initial tranche, with revenues directed to benefit both Venezuelans and U.S. supply chains. Discussions include selling existing crude and organizing future shipments that align with U.S. energy and supply interests. The U.S. plans also involve discussions with major American energy companies, with White House talks on the horizon about boosting Venezuela's oil production capacity and rebuilding infrastructure that has struggled under years of sanctions and underinvestment. Government officials have framed these moves as a way to help stabilize Venezuela's economy by reinvesting oil proceeds and encouraging long-term energy development, even as experts caution that rebuilding oil infrastructure may take years and billions of dollars. The evolving strategy includes selectively reducing certain sanctions and coordinating oil export logistics to ensure Venezuelan crude enters markets with greater predictability, a development that could influence global crude pricing, refinery feedstock flows, and energy security dynamics. This chapter shows how, beyond the major headlines, the future of Venezuelan oil is now tied not only to its massive reserves, but to how quickly production, investment, and international markets can align around a new energy roadmap in 2026. Venezuela's oil story shows how natural resources alone do not guarantee prosperity. The country holds the world's largest oil reserves, yet its future now depends on infrastructure, investment, political stability, and global energy markets. Oil is not just a commodity here. It is a long-term strategic asset whose impact reaches far beyond national borders. What happens next will shape more than Venezuela's economy. Changes in oil production, exports, and partnerships could influence global crude supply, fuel prices, refinery operations, and energy security across the Americas. The decisions made in the coming months may redefine how Venezuelan oil fits into the global energy system. Still, many questions remain open. Can production be restored at scale? Will foreign companies return in a sustainable way? And how long would it take for Venezuela's oil industry to regain its former role in global markets? These uncertainties keep investors, governments, and energy analysts watching closely. Now, the next chapter is unfolding in real time. And this is where your perspective matters. What do you think will happen next with Venezuela's oil? Will production recover, or will challenges slow the process once again? Share your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned as we continue uncovering how the world's most important resources are made and why they matter. Bye, stay well, and may God bless you.